So it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. I want to begin our conversation with what we've lived through for the last 3.5 years or so, going through this pandemic. How did you do? How did you get through it? How did it change you?
I opened a business 5 weeks before COVID hit.
Wow.
So yeah, it changed me dramatically. So I was a corporate brat. I reached retirement age, decided I wanted to do something the opposite side of the brain, and actually opened a glass art studio.
Wow.
And then everything came crashing down. So self-doubt, questioning myself, but somehow that inner voice was telling me I did the right thing. And so I decided after my, wallowing, I was going to find a good use for my time and take advantage. So I built a lot of extra glass for samples. I looked at what my class courses were, built out a gift shop, put lights in the cabinets. I mean, you name it. I tried to find something that I could do that utilized what I already owned so I wouldn't spend any more money, because that was probably my biggest fear is how long is this going to last? But because I had a retail shop, I was allowed to open for retail.
Okay.
So that helped me out tremendously.
Yeah. So let's kind of get a handle on not only this part of your life, but the previous part. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the kids was curious, what have you done not only now, but what have you done before career wise? How would you answer them?
Well, in third grade, I was living in Israel. My father was a college professor, and we went on a sabbatical. So we spent a year in Israel, and I spoke pretty much fluent Hebrew the entire time.
Wow.
I could translate English to Hebrew, Hebrew to English. Um, I would not say my writing skills in Hebrew were as good, but being the only English speaking person in my third grade class, if I wanted friends, I spoke Hebrew. So that was an amazing, amazing experience. I had a very blessed childhood. Fourth grade came back, had to learn French, and things automatically came out in Hebrew. Kids laughed at me because they didn't understand I was learning a third language by the time I was 8.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's like I might be different, but I'm okay being different. So is that could have been a bad thing, but it wasn't. And I learned lessons early.
Yeah. So what did you want to be when you were younger? What was your dream to grow up and become?
I really didn't remember having a dream very young. In junior high, we had a television studio at the junior high, and somehow I connected with it. And so I was watching people running the control panel, and they needed some help one day because they had to go into the studio itself and do things, and they wanted to see how it looked. I said, "Well, I'll run the console for you." And they're like, "What?" And I said, "Just tell me what to do." And they literally said, "Okay, switch to this camera." And I switched to that camera, do this, do that. And I was just doing it, and they were blown away. Um, and I loved it. I loved having my hands on equipment. I loved learning by watching and then being able to do it. I'm a better learner that way than I am by just reading a book.
So what was the corporate job? Was it running cameras or what were you doing in that capacity?
No, I had dreamed of that at that point. And I actually taught my senior year. I created a program for English and social studies credit and taught seventh and eighth graders in the science department a quarter semester of television production. I went when I graduated high school, my parents left home. I went on another sabbatical. So I went down to the local television station and said, I would like to interview. And the guy was so kind. Um, you talk about a mentor early on. I would say he was, and I can't even remember his name, but he said, this was a closed circuit television thing I was doing. It was just a local cable. And these guys were about 45 minutes away. They were in Springfield, Massachusetts. And he knew who I was. He knew what I'd been doing. He knew I'd taught. And he was very, very kind in the way he said it. He said, you are probably more talented than a lot of the directors in our control rooms right now. But it is a union environment, and it'll probably be you serving coffee to these guys who aren't as good as you are, and you're going to know that. And you'll probably have to wait close to 20 years to be able to get in their chair. He
Wow.
goes, I don't see that as being something that you're going to enjoy. And he's right.
Yeah.
He was absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so I followed a boyfriend across the country. He was one of the truck drivers for the old ice skating show, Ice Capades,
Yeah.
and came to California. And I
Cool.
went to an employment agency in the morning, and they sent me on a uh, job description for being a driver around Beverly Hills and deliveries. I thought, not, nah. And the second job offer they had was to go and be a clerk typist at a record distribution center in the Valley. And I went. I was hired on the spot to start the next day.
Wow.
So I decided California is where I need to be.
So how did the glass arts begin?
That was about 40 years later.
Okay.
So I was at IBM, I was at Toshiba, I was at Sony Pictures, I actually worked at ABC Entertainment Center, for a variety of jobs from human resources to accounting to secretarial. I mean, I did all kinds of things. I had a great life. I mean, I really have. So, to speed up now, I, my mom and father came to California because of their age and needing more assistance. And so I asked them if they'd come out here and consider so I could help them more. And they did. And where they were living was an assisted living facility that had someone coming on site. And my mom enjoyed this thing called fused glass. And I'd never heard of it, nor did I think I had a creative bone in my body that required my actually able to be creative with my own hands and make something. You would not want to see my stick figures. My coloring books were never in the lines, that kind of thing. And I thought, you know what? I want to learn what mom's doing. So I took a class, somewhat begrudgingly, but I thought, you know what? Mom doesn't care if I do a good job or not. She never has. She's always been supportive. So I want to support her. Took the class and fell in love with fused glass. Um, so there was a studio here in town that I would go to, and the owner had the beautiful crystal ball that told her, shut down this location. Something's coming. I don't know how she knew that, but she decided not to keep that location open, and I needed a place to play. So after about a year and a half playing with fused glass and watching people do things with the kilns and all kinds of other stuff, I opened my own studio.
Nice.
So a big leap of faith the other direction, but I knew from helping my husband's business that I could run a business. I did a lot of back end stuff. I was at Sony Pictures when I was there. I was in the IT department after a while, and we were the largest budget outside of feature film. So I understood a lot about business and budgets and all that forecasting, all that fun stuff that people hate. Well, most artists can't really run a business. So I asked friends I'd met who were very good artists to come help teach classes.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do it all in the beginning. And of course, we all kind of went, oops, 5 weeks later. But in that time, I developed through COVID a lot more of my skills. I had a lot more time to take and really use my hands and create some beautiful pieces of art. And there's a couple pieces I won't give up.
Yeah.
And, it's just like they meant so much to me in the very beginning.
Yeah.
So that was almost 4 years ago. I took over that studio space.
So who's been a hero for you in your life?
My parents,
Yeah.
um, my dad, as a college professor, he and my mom were an amazing couple. I lost my father earlier this year, but they were really an inspiration because of the support they always gave each other. and they each one was willing to take the back seat at different times in their lives. And I grew up, and I sort of chuckled to myself, but I grew up being colorblind. I didn't recognize people by any outside feature because we're always surrounded by all kinds of people. And my mom and dad adopted so many of them, not officially, but as part of the family. And so there was all this interaction all my life with just a large variety of different amazing people.
Yeah. Wow. So, what was the artwork that you saw early on in life that kind of gave you a formative idea of creativity and color that really inspired you?
Both my parents love photography, and we had a dark room. So we've always had some type of creativity. My sister and my dad have always been very talented artists with paint and pencils, and so are my sister's kids. Um, And we would do a lot. My parents introduced us to a lot of different types of art. So we did, when we were traveling to and from Israel, we went to a lot of museums, all different types. We had a lot of music in the house. We went to operas, we went to symphonies, we went to musicals. And so creativity has always kind of been in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
but I couldn't play an instrument. I couldn't paint, but I could enjoy it. I
Yeah.
could definitely see the beauty in it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. So, what is your inspiration every day? What is it that gets you out of bed? What is it that gets you to create and to have kind of this dual left right brain? What is the motivation that makes you who you are?
the community that has been developed because of the studio. Um, I have open studio members who are very like-minded. They're open, they're warm, they're compassionate, they're caring. And as customers come in and clients come in, they open their hearts to them as well. And it's very quick. I introduce everybody to everybody. I kind of laugh that we're the West Coast version of Cheers. So everybody's glad you came, everybody gets to know your name, and everybody feels included. And that community environment that's been created has been such a help for so many people for mental health, for emotional health, and just a place to feel connected to somebody else, especially after and during COVID, or during and after, I guess would be the better way of saying that.
Yeah. So, if you could meet anybody on the live on the planet right now, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Oh, you've asked that question to many of your in your episodes, and
Yes.
it's a funny question that I've been trying to think of a good answer for because it's a great question. There isn't anyone. There are so many people I still want to meet and get to know and hear their stories
Yeah.
and understand their backgrounds. I envy the type of job you have because you get to talk to so many people and learn so many things about other people. And I love that. I love having that be within my own little circle. I never thought the studio, and it's only 4 years old, would ever have brought together so many amazing people. I mean, I am really blessed. And I feel like there's been this calling to always keep this track that my parents always had going.
Yeah.
Um, and I love it. I get up in the morning and I can't wait to go into work because it's not work.
Yeah.
It's a haven. It's a happy place. It's so comfortable.
Yeah, what's that saying that about finding a job?
You
It's
never feel
escaping.
like you worked a day in your life.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
that kind of vibe. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting because there's a lot of similarities that I see between you and I. I'm a visual artist. This is my wife's a fifth grade teacher, so this actual painting is in a room. Um,
Oh my.
yeah, so I do a lot of visual arts. I'm an IT technician by day for a large school district, and I started out wanting to get into broadcasting. That was kind of my dream.
Wow.
Yeah, and I worked and I actually at one point almost worked for a large TV station when I lived in the city in my 20s here in Kansas City doing graphic design. And it was such a weird environment that the director at the time went nuts because something didn't get on cue on time. and it just had a really weird vibe. And I was like, I'm good. And I was a little older than everybody else. And I said, you guys can take my spot. I'm good. It just, there was a level of it. It took me a long time to get into broadcasting because I had to find the right person. And I did. One of my best friends, his name is John Christopher. I ran into him by accident. He had a studio in his house. So anyway, it is fascinating to talk to so many people that have so many diverse, and it's funny that you're doing glass because we just went out of town over Thanksgiving to Branson, Missouri, and my wife kept saying, "You got to see these people do this blown glass in one of these shops. How cool it is!" So it's like it's weird how all of these things turn into a carousel in my life, one way or another. It just all it seems like I run into it, so it's fascinating.
Yeah, blown glass is the one type we don't do. We teach classes in fused glass, which I'll
Okay,
explain in a second, stained glass, and mosaic.
yeah,
Fused glass comes in between all of those and is not as well known. And it's literally taking with the blown glass, you're standing in a very hot studio environment. The blowhole is about 2,000 degrees, and you have to be moving all the time. You have to be very focused on only that glass. And that is fascinating. And I love watching the uh, the, the artists create in that environment. That's not my thing.
yeah,
So fused glass is relaxed in the environment, comfortable. We got the music going. You can have a glass of wine, um, or a smoothie, of course,
yeah,
coffee,
sure,
tea, um, and you can visit and socialize. And then
yeah,
at night, because of the rates being lower, I put them all in a kiln, similar to a ceramics kiln. I put all the artwork, but the heating elements are different.
yeah.
And there's about an 18-hour cycle from when it starts to when I can take the glass out. But in that cycle, it goes up to 14 or 1500 degrees,
Wow,
and it fuses the glass together.
interesting. That's cool. That's very cool. It's fascinating how these things work, how all of the because I've never gotten into that side of it from ceramics and glass and all of that. It's fascinating how it can work. So, you've obviously excelled pretty well in your life. What's been the best advice you've ever taken?
Don't take myself too seriously.
Yeah,
Um, One of my favorite phrases that somebody told me is, "It's better to be a smart ass than a dumbass."
yeah,
But and I do say that on occasion. I have a lot of I have the bad puns and jokes. Um, but I would say in corporate, I took myself much more seriously.
yeah,
And the times where I found myself the happiest, though, is when I was helping other people or I was helping make a difference in the company. So even in big companies, like IBM, the department we were in, I was able to help make a difference in the way they did some of the things because of my experience with Sony Pictures when I was the end user they were talking to, about the products. So it's really been a thrill. I mean, I just do I have regrets? Yes. I always nice as I should have been to people? No. Did I make mistakes? Absolutely. But I think I learned from them.
yeah.
And maybe I didn't learn immediately, but I did learn from them.
Yeah, I guess that's the key. That's the idea to wisdom. It's interesting. I was in corporate America for a while, and thankfully I got out because it got to be too much. But I got into the United Way right after that, and I ran
Mm.
campaigns and ended up going to the YMCA. So I got in the nonprofit sector for a while, which is one of the reasons why education makes sense to me. It's like there's a level of that it's a circle of life that's very evident that you see that makes sense. It makes sense to me. So it's it's a good thing. So let me ask you this: as somebody that's obviously curious about a lot of things, you've talked about learning things. There has to be a thirst for this life. If you could see any event in human history with your own eyes, be there to witness it, what would you love to have seen happen?
Another one of the great questions that you ask. Um, it's funny. I've seen so many. It was one of the conversations I had with my parents when they first moved out. I said, you guys are in your 80s. All the things that have happened in your lifetime, what was the most important or what was the one that came to you the most as being um, that made the biggest impact. And I would have to say, for me, the biggest impact was after we left Israel, um, was the Six-Day War in Israel.
Yeah.
And back then, there were no cell phones, there was no internet, there was nothing, there's no easy way to communicate with people. But a bomb went off in a supermarket that was below the apartment building that we had rented,
Wow.
an apartment in. And I had no way of knowing if my friends were okay or not.
Wow.
And at, 8 years old, um, that was a very traumatic thing for me.
Yeah.
Um, and it always stands out whenever I think about what has happened in my life, because I can tell you all kinds of funny stories. I can tell you all kinds of really cool things that have happened and things I've done and I've accomplished, but that had the biggest impact on me.
Yeah. That's an interesting way of saying that. What is of all of the things that you've done and accomplished, what are you the proudest of?
My daughter,
Yeah.
my daughter, I ended up getting divorced when she was 3 and pretty much raised her on my own, with being a working mom and trying to make ends meet all the time. And we have this phenomenal relationship that I can't even explain it. We just know each other so well and we respect each other so much. And I'm just so proud of everything she does.
That's wonderful. So let me ask you this. If you have a dream tonight, you run into your senior and high school year version of you, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life. What will you tell that young version of you? What wisdom would you impart on that younger version?
Really, what you think of as love when you're that young is not really love, not to the degree that I needed it and I wanted it and what I wanted out of a relationship. Um, and so I had a boyfriend for a long time. That's why I followed him around the country with escapades, which, by the way, was fun. I've been to all 50 states, uh, based on just loving to travel in general. And yeah, it would be to really better understand what my needs are in a relationship and how to be a good partner in a relationship.
You know, I got remarried in my 40s, and I think about that all the time when I talk to relationship experts because the one thing that art and music and everything, poetry, stories, movies, it's all about love. And we are all so
Yeah,
historically bad at it in the beginning. You know, it's just one of those things that you have to, it's a trial by error. It's not taught. You have to figure it out. But we all have these ideas and we just don't know, and it just takes time.
absolutely. Yeah. My second marriage, I sort of, because I'm a geek, I laugh. I said version 2.0 has a
Yeah.
better operating system, more memory, um, and it functions better. Uh, every now and then there are error messages that come up on the screen,
Yeah. Yep. 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 But then
but a
you
lot less than there were in that version 1.
yeah, right. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to do a reboot for sure. That's the number one rule of IT. Have you rebooted?
Exactly.
That's it. That's
It's
it.
not working. Did you try rebooting it?
That's it.
Yes.
That's the first question. So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your community, clients, but you ultimately are in charge of it. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I'm a much better person being with art than I was being in corporate. Um, I am much more relaxed. I am much more open to listening and hearing and being compassionate and being a true friend. And I think that that's something I'm super proud of. And I love the world around me right now. It's just, it's, it's like I laugh because it's like I don't have a reason not to laugh. I don't have a reason not to smile. People go, "Do you smile all the time?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, how do you do that?" And I said, "It's from inside out.
Yeah.
That smile and my cheer and my joy that I spread is all from the inside."
So describe to me one piece of artwork that you're never going to get rid of and why it's such an emotional piece.
I made within the first 6 months, I think it might have been right at 7 months, 6, 7 months of being with Fuse Glass. I made a wall piece that is about 25 by 15 inches, and it's multicolored on the back. And there is a vase that comes out three-dimensional on it that was fused. And then I have glass flowers in it as well. And then there's a little butterfly. And when I made it, everything I had sort of seen and looked at for the most part at that time, and it was just what was coming through me, was flat, or it was just shaped in a little bowl. But this is three-dimensional. And that was so important to me. And people ask, I have it hanging in the studio, and people ask me all the time, is that for sale? Because that's beautiful. And I'd always just kind of, no. And they go, why not? I said, because that was the first piece that I made that was really very special to me, three-dimensional, teaching myself that there's nothing I can't do. I set my mind to it and I
Yep.
can do it.
Hmm.
And even early on in my a career of being in fused glass, which isn't that long to begin with, look what I did.
Yeah.
And it's in everybody. It's just knowing that it's okay to let it out, I think is probably, and everybody has to start somewhere. That's
Yeah.
not where I started.
Yeah. Yeah. John Coltrane's favorite word was yes. So there's something to be said about, embracing the yes. So if anyone Nancy wants to learn more about you, the Glass Arts Collective, get your artwork, anything about your world, where can they go?
Glass Arts with an S collective.com. From there is my website and my gift shop that I'm really proud of is there. And it's not only gifts that I made, but other gifts that the artists in my studios made. So unlike Etsy, which has great stuff on it, where you get to see one artist at a time, you get to see 11 artists at one time in my gift shop. And we ship throughout the United States. If you're in the area, we'd love to have you stop by. I teach classes. Um, I'm closed Mondays and Tuesdays. Those are the days for my family. And my mom is still with us. She just turned 91 yesterday.
Nice.
And I make sure that there's a quality time with her always.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's different classes and I do team building sessions. We do parties. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Well, Nancy, keep spreading the light. Thank you for your energy, your time, your story. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. This has been great.
I love it. Absolutely. Have a great